welcome to this webinar. Just some quick insights about who we are. If you've never seen us before, we deliver community webinars, coaching and training, and 80% of our team are neurodivergent. So there's so many of us here that can relate to you. We offer a strengths-based approach, and we are a social enterprise as well. So now you know a little bit about us. I want to give you my own disclaimer about who I am. So I'm dyslexic, dyspraxic, ADHD, and autistic. So at times that means I can speak real fast. And that might also mean I slur some of my words and I can be quite pragmatic. But I see these traits as a strength. You may not. So because we're still all learning about our co-occurring challenges and strengths, it's going to be really great as advocates in this space to acknowledge where we are and our own lived experiences. And just remember that we're always here to support you. Understanding our needs to fully engage is really important. One of the most important things we can do when we're in this space. I always think that this space is a great judgment-free zone. It helps us to be able to see other people's perspectives, be able to acknowledge our perspectives, and take away some really great nuggets of wisdom, because everyone is a teacher, essentially. Every single person that you meet in this world teaches you something, whether that's a good lesson or a bad lesson. So understanding your needs in order to fully engage is going to help me so much. So these are some of the things that helps me to be engaged if I know that I'm going to have this space and capacity. So maybe you're in agreement with me, or maybe you've got some other insights. So with that in mind, what type of agreements help you to get your needs met in this space? Time to process the info. Fantastic. Now I know that. I'm going to make sure that there is time for that too. Open conversations. Yes, yes, yes. Instructions in writing as well as verbally. Fantastic. Yes, time to process. I've got 2 for those. So I'm going to try my best to do that. Honesty as well. Yes, honest spaces are key to build that authentic connection with each other and just to divulge information. Interacting, structure, visual input. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. When someone replies to an email where I expect a response, yes, I definitely can relate to that one. And we're going to actually go into some of those scenarios that can be challenging. Consistency, a non-judgmental space to speak. Yes, yes, and yes. And so I'm going to help you to create that space, and we're going to help each other to create that space as well. We are now on to the next section. Structure. You wanted structure, I've got a little bit of structure. We're going to go through how to identify the different ways our emotions present. We're going to then share together some tools to help you manage your emotions. And I'm going to help you understand, these are some of the ways that exceptional individuals can actually help you move forward. So those are a few of the things we're going to go through today. So bear with me. It's not going to be perfect. My disclaimer again, but it's going to be something that might help you to regulate those emotions and or help other people do the same for themselves. So first of all, what is emotional dysregulation? It's a big word, and it's basically the inability to control or regulate your emotional response to stimuli. So just imagine if you get stressed out or you get triggered, for lack of a better word, by situations and scenarios, environments around you. And you respond in a way that might not be as helpful for you, because perhaps after a while, you reflect and find out there's a better way to it you could have responded, or perhaps at times you was reacting. I mean, if that's ever happened to you, I know it happens to everyone, but it happens to me as well. And I just wanted to highlight that to normalize it. That's what emotional dysregulation is. Yes, it is common amongst people that is who have dyslexia. So I just wanted to focus on the question, is it common? According to the Centre of Disease and Control and Prevention, almost 50% of people diagnosed with ADHD also have dyslexia. Now, emotional dysregulation is very common for those with ADHD. And so you might go undiagnosed with ADHD, which might mean there are times when you have this co-occurring challenge, and it's a spectrum, right? And they overlap. So certain things that are applicable, or you might find as a symptom or a trait for others, you might end up having or experiencing that as well. So in terms of it being a co-occurring condition or symptom across the board, definitely shows up with ADHD. Definitely shows up with dyslexia, again, because of the crossover, and as well with autism to an extent too. And they kind of can look the same, but obviously different symptoms, different stimuli will have different reactions. Again, kind of giving you some background and real data. It's actually attached as well to the way that we interact with others. So if we are not emotionally regulated, we can find that our relationships suffer because of it. And the way to kind of overcome that is to regulate, but also from the knock-on effect of that is to be able to have a secure attachment style, which I'll come into in a second. But it's about having that flexible ability to accept and integrate positive and negative emotions that are generally from people that are known as securely attached. So the same for ADHD and ADD, yes, there's this emotional dysregulation challenge there about impulsivity and inattention. All of those things also impact it. So if you want to do further research, J. Cassidy 1994, you can go reference it and find the information. So the reason why I talked about secure attachment styles, because this is where the sweet spot is. This is where you want to kind of be. That low emotional avoidance and that low anxiety. Everything else makes us anxious, fearful, or avoidant. And why this is important is because anxiety causes us not only mental pain, but physical pain in the long term. And avoidance means that we don't get to resolve certain communication challenges. And when we're fearful of things, we don't go take those risks. We don't go and do things that are going to help us stretch out of our comfort zone. When we're avoidant, we find ourselves highly emotional when it comes to things and perhaps having outbursts in places. And when we're anxious, we have that fear and that sort of fear in our belly. And it basically knock-on effect is that low emotional avoidance and high anxiety because of it. So if we kind of focus on the secure, the low anxiety payoff and the low emotional avoidance comes into play. Everything else kind of is that red flag that says to us, we need to get back into this box. Just to make it really simplistic, we're trying to make it as simple as possible. This is where we want to be, much more on the secure side. This is the payoff. This is what you get as a person that gets to be securely attached. You have that high self-esteem, you have the independence and autonomy, your resilience in the face of adversity. You're able to make those long-term friendships last. Those relationships with your parents, caregivers, and other authority figures are solid. You get to have that trust, intimacy, and amongst many more things. So if we go back just to this, we know we want to be here, but the reason as to why is because of this payoff. And that's, for me, is huge. And oftentimes when we coach and train people around this topic, when it comes to dyslexia specifically, the self-concept, self-identity, self-esteem, because of the many, many years of going through different scenarios, different institutions, this can sometimes be a challenge to get to. And so that's why ongoing work and awareness is really important. And coming to workshops like this is going to do everything to help you build upon that work that you're already doing. So make sure that you are congratulating yourself for doing that work as well. I'm stressed when I feel, is it ignored, worried, criticized, or unappreciated? Which one is you? I mean, you can have all of them, to be fair, but I'm stressed when I feel. What is it? What comes up for you? And this really helps you just to get that awareness. That's really important, because then you can pinpoint it to why the stress has come up and you can start to do something about it. Again, I'm stressed when I feel ignored, worried, criticized, or unappreciated. So the top one is criticized. And again, just going back to co-occurring challenges, one of the big factors of ADHD is one of the traits is rejection sensitivity. And that comes to do with being criticized and not being able to process and decode that. So ignored, worried, criticized at the top, unappreciated. So these things are your stress indicators. If you are feeling stressed, and you can look to one of these things and say, hey, I feel, and you can start to communicate from that place. When you do this, I feel, and it's very much more of an assertive type conversation rather than an accusation. But the stress can turn into actions like then you reacting with somebody who ignores you, ignoring them back, which isn't very helpful because you want to move the conversation forward, but it can be very challenging. You might start to be busy. I'm just going to ignore what's going on and I'm just going to do what I'm doing. Again, doesn't deal with the scenario. You might withdraw, like even in meetings, you might just say, I feel quite stressed right now, so I'm going to withdraw. I'm going to maybe doodle, do something else. You might even find yourself saying yes to something when you really mean no. So you become a people pleaser, but then you actually back out of it. Or you start to explain something irrelevant when people ask you a direct question, just so that you don't have to actually get to the core of what it is that you want to focus on. I feel stressed when I feel criticism. I feel stressed when I'm not supported, especially in the workplace. Yes, and it's so important because then you'll be able to identify that, because then you say, okay, what would make me feel much more calm, which would make me feel supported? And so knowing what those indicators are so important. Get into what we want. We know what we don't want. We know what we want, and that is self-regulation. We want to manage our emotions and behavior in accordance with the demands of the situation. I'll say it again slowly. We want to manage our emotions and behavior in accordance with the demands of the situation. I'm going to just reflect on anything, right? We want. It's a huge thing to be able to do that. Doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means it's a great thing that we're trying to achieve. To be able to respond rather than to react. To be able to have a conversation rather than to have a battle. To be able to walk away from a conversation and feel good. Not being too, I've seen the assertiveness video. It's that whole win-win. I feel good, they feel good. That's amazing to be able to leave a piece of you with someone that feels positive. So just remember, this is what we're doing here. Even though you might feel frustrated or stressed out by some of the things I'm going to say, this here is why we're here. So with that in mind, let's talk about why this is relevant for specifically dyslexia. Many of the people that we see have an unclear sense of their self, like who they are, how they are ordinarily seen and perceived by others in a positive way. And so all of that sense of self, that unclear sense of self, means that the self-regulation that you're doing, or the need and the want and the aim, will actually stop you from achieving your goals. So if you could just imagine, you've got this unclear sense of who you are, which then means that you then have a knock-on effect of not being regulated with your emotions because maybe your values are not in alignment. And then your goals don't get achieved, which is hard. It's hard to see, it's hard to hear, because we've got massive goals, we've got world changers in this room that want to do things, and it can be really frustrating to be able to say, hey, I'm not getting what I need out of this, and I'm so angry and irritable all the time. Vicious circle. Let's focus on what it is that we want to do to make sure that we have this clear sense of who we are. But self-esteem. And just to make it clear, it's the extent to which we value ourselves. Simple question would be like, if I love myself enough, I would. Like, what would you do? What would you say? How would you act? Who would you be? How do you value yourself? Do you value yourself enough to say no when you mean no? Or are you saying yes when you really mean no? The ideal self, what you'd like to be, to that sometimes goal that can feel quite unattainable if we're not in alignment with our daily actions and behaviors. Sometimes that ideal self is derived from our community, who we think we should be and not who is good for us. Sometimes our ideal self is just based on societal norms. But very clear, when you come clearer on your self-concept, you're clear on what you'd like to be based on your own values. And then self-image, how you see yourself. If somebody says to you, you're fantastic at ABC, do you say thank you? I love doing this, ABC. Or do you kind of push it away? So important to be able to see yourself in a very clear light. I feel stressed when I feel ignored, worried or unappreciated. Yes, great to be able to have that awareness and be able to then say, what do we want instead? Regarding the workplace, I feel like I went back to childhood sensitivity. Yes and yes. So my stress indicator is feeling unappreciated. When someone makes me feel like that it triggers my stress and I get angry and act immature. It happens, and just to be aware of it and knowing there's some tools that are available to move forward, tools I'm going to share with you today, and to know that there is nothing to be ashamed of. The fact that you are here to do the work, the fact that you are aware of that is a great way forward. So with that in mind, more evidence to make sure that those people that love to do research, if you want to do further work, it's that positive self-concept challenge that comes up again and again. And this is where the dyslexia part is really essentially like in terms of it. When we don't have that, it becomes difficult to alter. If we focus on it and we work on it, that means we can actually stay in that zone of I know who I am, I know what I see, I know who I am. So it's very important that we do this work because we know that it becomes kind of like we become that unshakable tree. Know who we are. We don't vie away from it when we do this work. So generally speaking, do neurodiverse people like us tend to rely on what others to get a sense of who we are? There's a validation thing sometimes that happens, right? We end up having external validation, wanting external validation from people, when essentially what's really important is to find out how to get the validation for yourself. How do you say yes to yourself and say that I did a good job? And finding out what that kind of looks like. Sometimes we're looking for needs from others when we need to feed that into ourselves. So yes, it's a challenge that comes up again and again, and it's just being able to notice it and see where you can step in and be that person for yourself. So what are the 3 tools? We've spoken about the background of it. So what are the 3 tools, like I said, that's going to help you to manage your emotions so they no longer manage you? First one, I wanted to share this video, but I don't know if you've ever watched it, and it's on YouTube. Things not to say to someone with dyslexia. This brought up a lot of trigger. I was going to play it, but I don't think the sound's going to work. But some of these tools I'm going to share is about things, the way that society kind of interacts with us. There's always going to be things that people say and do that aren't always from an emotionally intelligent place or a cultural intelligent place. And so the reason why this video is quite important is that even though what people say and do can impact us, we've kind of got to be aware that we don't want anyone to be able to rock our emotions in such a way that we get so aggravated. And there's going to be some really funny, not so funny things here that people say to someone with dyslexia. So do go check it out because it just shows that there's so many people that just still need that education. But it's not for us to always educate them as well. And that's, I guess, the step where you say, actually, I have a certain tolerance for educating people, but I also know that my boundaries and values needs me still protect myself. So you can always send them this video as well if you need to. Okay, so number 1 tool that this is not in a particular order either, is DBT. So dialectical behavior therapy is basically where you're taught skills and strategies for managing emotions, handling conflict, and building tolerance for uncomfortable feelings. So oftentimes we're told we should have these skills, but that's not the case. And so these skills are skills. They're handling emotions, handling conflict. They're skills. They're life skills that sometimes we've been skipped over because for the lack of, I guess, awareness of others. And we've seen behavior modeled in different ways, and we've taken that on board and not knowing that it's not always the most effective. So DBT helps us to do it in a much more effective way, so that we can, manage our emotions amongst those other things, help us deal with uncomfortable feelings. So one of the things is that they advocate for, there's so many tools in DBT, I didn't want to share every single one, but I wanted to share one that might be really helpful, and that's increasing positive emotions. Because most of the time, I don't know if you've ever felt like this, but when you don't feel motivated to do something, it's often an indication that you're running low in terms of your battery. And so the first step is to kind of make sure that you've got a way to refill, a way to recharge, so that you can get that motivation. And sometimes Honestly, motivation's that myth. And depending on where you're at, you might have habits that are reinforced. But bottom line is, you want to increase your positive emotions, regardless of whether you believe in the power of motivation or not. So this is a pleasurable activities log, and it might look basic, but I'm telling you, to utilize this, it will change the game for you, because it will be your go-to thing. Like, I get to see, why am I not feeling so good? Then you recognize, hey, I get to choose some things that are going to make me feel better. And so this is where you just say what it is, how you feel, and what did you think, so that you can say, actually, this didn't work well for me. Oh, actually, this made me go from a 2 to a 10, or it made me feel a bit meh. It doesn't matter. The point is, you get to measure these activities over time, and you choose ones that work really well for you. So just think about what pleasurable activities will be for you. Yes. Great, great, great. These are a few ideas. Keep an eye on them, because I'm going to ask you for your own in a second. So you've got a really good way. I mean, there's a list of 183 plus pleasurable activity ideas we can share with you at the end of this. These are just 10. Just 10. So that to give you a little bit of an idea as to what you could possibly do, make yourself have an increase in positive emotions. Going for a holiday might be more of a staycation more than anything right now. But the bottom line is, these are just a few that you could try. I can't wait for the cinema to open personally, because even though Netflix is great, so is Amazon Prime and Now TV, there is nothing better than having the cinema experience. Popcorn, the people, enjoying the movies and together, sharing laughter. So that for me would be one of the things that are on my pleasurable activities. So what will be on yours? What pleasurable activities are on your list this week? Let's make this actionable. Even 24 hours would be better, but share with me here your pleasurable activities based on some of the ideas I shared, or something else that helps you to go from maybe a 2 to a 5, or a 5 to a 10. Career planning is a pleasurable activity. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing, because then you're seeing what your next steps are in your career. Yes, cooking meals, simple cook recipe kits, great. Playing hockey, fantastic. Planting some flowers, love good flowers. I'm not a flower person, but I do have a spider snake. Singing and swimming, getting on my bike for the first time since summer, fantastic. Having a bath, listening to music, watching funny educational videos, spending time on my special interests in cooking. Yes, yes, and yes. Sowing seeds, playing, cuddling the dog, learning about D.O.S.E cocktails. Fantastic, fantastic. Reading, flowers, manicure, pedicure, arts and crafts, binging on a good show. Yes, and yes. What show is that? Let me know. I'm always looking to add something to my list. Great. So we've got a few there. Great ideas if you haven't shared already. Roller skating. Oh my gosh, I haven't done that in years. Walking the dog, long hot bath. Doing my weekend job, DJing. Yes, wow, that's amazing. Didn't realize how much I needed that until it was gone during lockdown. Drawing, yes, yes, and yes. Swimming, all of these things are great. Have this on your list, make a note of this, because these things are going to help to increase your positive emotions, which is why we're here, for that regulation that we want as well. Emotional regulation. Is there anyone else I want to share? Zumba, love Zumba. Love Zumba. Watching Watford Football Club, watching a match on TV or live. Wow, amazing. I've never actually known anyone. I didn't even know Watford Football Club existed. See, I'm uneducated. I need to learn more. Classical dance. That's an amazing list. Watching a series on Prime. I'm going to take some of your ideas. Full disclosure. These are great. What else was coming up? Okay, great. Watching Indian classical dance as your Indian. Okay, great. Fantastic. Great, great, great. Choir, when we can go again. Yes, I'm not a singer, but I totally get that idea. I love watching a choir. Watching a series on Prime. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. So, we've got some ideas here. Knowing that we're increasing our positive emotions, I wanted to kind of put a spanner in the works. Emotions are neither good or bad. And you're probably thinking, well, one of the reasons why I say this, because the primary cause of unwanted emotions is emotions that have gone long unanswered. Oftentimes, our emotions want us to respond to to it. We squash negative emotions down and we say we want to stay positive, but that doesn't help to solve the problem. It gives us important information about where we're at when we're feeling something. And we actually program to respond to emotions. So whenever we're kind of pushing our emotions down, what we're doing is we're denying who we are. We're denying ourselves. We're denying how we're feeling. We're invalidating ourselves. So when you actually say, I am feeling, and then you're validating yourself, you're giving yourself space to own your emotion before it owns you. Doesn't want that. I know I don't want my emotions to own me. I don't want them to come up with self-sabotage in other ways, get irritable with other people because I haven't managed them in a way that's helpful. I don't know if this has ever happened for you, but somebody asks you a question, you snap at them. You're snapping at them not because of what they said, but because there's some emotions you haven't dealt with, you haven't acknowledged that needs addressing before you move forward. Always reserved. Okay. Sometimes it's really helpful just to acknowledge your emotions. But yeah, being reserved, I was reserved for a very long time and still reserved in some spaces. Sometimes you need time to process your emotions as well. I can give you a quick sheet of the notes so that you've got some great things that'll be helpful for you. Yeah, happy to do that. Okay, great. So, tool number 2. ACT, or otherwise known as ACT, because no one actually calls it ACT. So we talked about DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy. And ACT is another type of therapy, and it's much more action orientated. So it gives you some tools, but these ones are around what I just mentioned before. Owning your emotions, accepting them. And with this understanding, you accept your issues, you accept the hardships, you accept, hey, sometimes we're living in this neurotypical world to an extent, and it's not always the most neurodiverse friendly. It could be. We could kind of fight, we can get angry about certain things, or we could say, actually, this is hard. Find this a challenge. But again, you don't let that emotion overtake you. I'm going to share with you an ACT tool that's going to be helpful for you. Hopefully, again, these are tools. There's so many different tools you can use. And this is just about being aware of how you can help yourself with emotional dysregulation. Normalize it to let you know, hey, people have many, many different challenges. And knowing that there's tools out there to help normalizes it and makes it accessible to all. I can send it in the crib sheets, but it's a proven methodology. There's been some case studies on successes. But basically, the way it works, it's about measuring your psychological flexibility. So normally when something happens, you can normally revert back to a like-minded scenario. You might have an unpleasant thought that's connected to another unpleasant thought. It kind of brings it up. And so when you're utilizing some psychological flexibility, you're able to stay in the present moment. You're able to assess the situation. You're able to connect with your personal values. And so it's not necessarily saying what happened didn't happen. It's just saying, I get that feeling right now. I get that thought. I get that feeling. I also am going to have a way to be present right now. And there's lots of mindfulness in DBT and ACT as well. But in terms of making sure that I can do this, and I know that the writing's not the best, and black and white writing, probably the worst thing I've ever done in this presentation, but this is a really quick test to find out how flexible you are in terms of your psychological prowess, how you like to react. So all you do is basically go through the questions, you then answer from 1 to 7, and then you add all your answers up, and then you know where you're at. And this isn't about comparing where you're at with somebody else. This is much more around just being aware on how flexible you are. And I'm going to give you a second, but just to give you a visual cue, think of the context of you and not anyone else. Higher score means less flexibility, while lower score means more flexibility. I'm just going to give you a minute to look at some of these questions. Be honest with yourself. This isn't a test for us which you need to share. This is just a test to see where you're at. to increase that awareness that we talked about in the beginning, to hold space. Yes, it is. In answer to your question, yes, it is a psychological flexibility test, and the references will probably be on that maybe 5-page crib sheet so that you can have reference to it as well. Great, great, great. 11, fantastic. I mean, the highest score you could possibly get is 49. But if you measure this over time, you'll recognize just how much work is paying off. And obviously, it's based on context sometimes as well. And again, this is not about comparison. This is literally just finding out where you are at in context to you, not anyone else. Okay, so what have you identified stopping you from being flexible? So just to give you that context for the questions, being afraid of your feelings, being worried about not being able to control your feelings, painful memories, emotions that cause problems. Which of these might be stopping you from being a bit more flexible? Maybe it was the highest score. I'm going to go back. Some of you have identified the following that stopped you from being flexible: the lack of self-awareness, not being obnoxious to others, but being obnoxious to myself. So honest, I love that. Thank you for sharing. Painful work experiences. Oh, yes, repercussions of that are huge. So thank you for sharing. Not being heard when I say or ask for something. Yeah. Yes, painful memories and being unconsciously worried. Yeah, afraid of my feelings, intense reactions, frustration and not understood. Yes, and yes, and yes. Worry about expressing my emotions in case I upset others. Yes, I think of imposter syndrome at work. Struggling to own and accept my feelings and how they are affected by other people. Yes, and the real thing, sometimes we've been told not to show an emotion because it makes other people feel bad, but that doesn't help us. Controlling emotions, especially when feelings don't get validated by others. Yeah. Not knowing how to ask for what I need, particularly because I don't yet fully know what I need to do the best job. Yes, and yes. Being overwhelmed by my emotions and that preventing me from communicating or taking info in. All of these, guys, are just normal. Normal when you've squashed down your emotions for so long and you've not known how to present them to others. And sometimes we've done that and we've not always got the best response. Okay, so tool number 3 is less of a tool, but more of a, well, it is a kind of a tool. It's a tool. It's just dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphin. Those are just things that are in our body. Sometimes we have deficiencies in some due to the chemical imbalance. There's been research out there about certain levels of dopamine being lower for people that are ADHD, dyslexic, and sometimes we have to create ways to increase our levels. Just full stop. Doing this, increasing all of these levels will help us to move forward. Full stop. Because they're happiness chemicals that are in our body that sometimes is lacking due to different reasons, to do with all of the co-occurring challenges we come across. So, quick low dopamine level check for you all. If you are feeling low energy or fatigued, if you're feeling anxious or if you've got mood swings, let me know. I think you can only choose one of these, but I know that sometimes it can be all of them, all the feels. So let me know what you are feeling. Put it in the chat, share within the app. I need to know, Pry Eyes need to know. It helps us to, again, normalize this. So some of us are feeling low energy, fatigue. Some of us are feeling anxious. Some of us are feeling like we have mood swings. And again, these are some of the repercussions of not necessarily articulating and being able to know how to channel our emotions. So low energy seems to be the winner. My painful work experience, not able to reach my full potential, feeling or failing. So I hear you, and I think it's so challenging to have to deal with that time and time again. And it can definitely affect our mental well-being. And so honoring what you need and knowing the boundaries you need to set is something that needs to be checked in again and again. So like, applaud yourself for doing that and helping yourself become empowered as well. Okay, so low energy. So there's many of us in here. Low energy, feeling anxious, we've got mood swings. So this is what you could do to boost your dopamine. So this is not an exhaustive list, but these are some really easy to do lists, things I found that might help you. And you can choose one, you can choose a lot. You might already do some of these, but this is just an indication for you to continue. If you're already doing it, great, amplify it. If you're not doing it, It's okay. There's no shame here. This is just about giving you awareness of how you can improve your dopamine levels. You as a person, as a whole person, still honored, still seen, still heard. But this might help you to increase the dopamine booster. And I'm going to explain why all of these are important if I haven't done already at the end of this tool. So which one would you do? Put it on your list of your pleasure activity. Maybe you can combine it. Maybe swimming is part of a pleasure activity, but also helps to increase your dopamine, which is great, right? Because you're I'm not going to say the same because that's very cruel, but you get to do the things more effectively. So those are natural dopamine boosters. Making a list of things to do, ticking them off. Meditating, love meditation. But it did take me a while to get into it. And when I have got a flight and fright response, as in I'm not very calm, it's very hard for me to meditate. So I have to find a way to calm myself in order to meditate in the first place. And it might be the same for you. Again, these are just tools to help you. Okay, quick oxytocin check. Hopefully I spelled it right. So if you're feeling stressed, again, low energy, because they kind of cross over, or disconnected from friendships, let me know. If you've already done low energy, see if there's anything else that comes up for you. If not, then that's fine. But they cross over. The great thing about this dose is that if you do maybe one thing, like exercise, it ticks all of the boxes. But it's just that regularity, doing it again and again and again, and it helps. So being stressed, disconnected from friendships, low energy comes up again. Again, the things that are going to be helpful for you are the things I've already mentioned, but this as well. So low energy wins again. Socializing, making plans to meet with friends, massage, and listening to music. Those are really easy things that you can start to implement to boost your oxytocin levels. And I really probably should have shared with you why this is important, but I'm going to keep you guessing, which means that you're going to be engaged in it anyway. So these are a few things you could do to increase those oxytocin levels, apart from the things that you already saw with the dopamine. Socializing, getting a massage, or giving one, and listening to music. So this is D.O.S.E in a nutshell. I spelled nutshell really weird. Dopamine is the habit former. So if you want to increase the ways, the continuity, to be continuous with your habits, then increase the dopamine levels. If you want to make sure that your relationships are building that trust and positive feelings, then oxytocin. Those ways to build your oxytocin levels that I shared will help you with the trust and positive feelings. Serotonin is about you being that leader, being loyal, having sort of a status, and there's certain things you do there as well. And again, on that one sheet, I will share with you some things there. Endorphins about helping you to deal with stress and reduce feelings of pain. And that's going to be really important for all of you here that want to stress better. And you can stress better. It is possible, and it is very doable for those of us who are neurodivergent. We just need to find the right tools for us. So that's D.O.S.E in a nutshell. So we're going to bring it all together now. We're going to bring it all together because we need basically a plan. So when I notice these warning signs and triggers, I will. So like when I feel stressed, when I withdraw, what would you do? We're regulating our emotions. So when you withdraw, when you ignore, when you get busy, what will you do instead that will help you to regulate your emotions? So another example, actually, when I notice I am withdrawing, or when I notice I am feeling not acknowledged by others, I will do some meditation. It will be really quick meditation. And then I will go back to the situation and articulate my needs. Real simple. Again, it's not like rocket science. It's really helpful. I had this webinar last week. I've chosen anxiety because I was anxious 2 weeks ago, but this week I've experienced low energy levels. Anxious of applying for jobs. I was bullied at my previous work. Yes, there are tools that might help you to do that, but totally honor that anxiety can come fast and furious. So you might be thinking, what do I do when these warning signs come up? And you might still be processing or typing. Switching off notifications on my devices and taking time away from social media. Great. It's a great way to do it. Go for a walk and be on my own to enjoy my own company. Fantastic. Make sure I spend some time doing what I want to do, not what I think I should. That's powerful. Yes, yes, and yes. When I feel unappreciated, I will do something nice for myself, like go on a dog walk, If the sun is shining, cook for my family, go and buy myself something cute, ignore my phone, basically be alone and do something nice and appreciate myself. Yes, yes, and yes. Take a step back, review the situation, communicate the issue, withdraw the social media and give myself a break. Yes. See, I notice myself go really fast. Find a useful distraction to take my mind off the trigger. Count slowly to 10 while we're taking deep breaths. Yes, sometimes it's great to just walk away. Sometimes it's good to just take a breath. Sometimes it's good to step back, take time out for the situation, moving my body before returning to the issue. Yep. Yes, yes, and yes. When I notice that others are withdrawing, I change the subject and find a way to go back. If no response, I feel stressed. To leave the room, take some time for myself. Again, yeah, these are really good mechanisms, strategies that are helpful for you. And eventually you'll find other ones that might be helpful. But right now, knowing what you're going to do, what's helpful, is part of your emotional regulation plan. Great. You're self-regulating when you're doing this stuff. So I will increase my positive emotions by, remember I shared with you that positive emotions list, all the things that you could do, increase my positive emotions by, is it maybe something we haven't mentioned? Positive affirmations. Perhaps there are some comedies that you need to put on your list, ticking off a to-do list, doing things that make you feel good. What else comes up for you to increase your emotions? You can never have too much on your list because, let's face it, we like variety. And if you have things that are working, fantastic. But sometimes we just need to go back to old things and then go back to the new things again. Doing activities I enjoy, such as cooking, reading, and watching YouTube. Yes, yes, and yes. Spending time outside of the weather is good, fantastic. Reminding myself of this webinar as it's making me feel empowered. I do need to channel that more often, so thank you. I cook, garden, swim, and sing. Yes, yes. Being on my own and listening to my own thoughts, yes. Yeah, and challenging those thoughts as well if they're not in conjunction with who you want to become. But yes, love that, because I think sometimes just observing is so powerful. Spending time researching things like cooking something new, spending time with myself or my loved ones. Yes, yes, and yes. Get those levels of happiness chemicals up, definitely. Fantastic. Eating healthier, great. Okay, so I'm going to move on so we can get to the end and you can get the additional help you might need as well. So the other question is, when I follow this plan, I reward myself by. So what will be your reward? Doing this work can feel at the beginning quite emotional. Sometimes, because it's not your natural response, it might feel like hard labor. So in order for you to feel like there's a payoff, twice the payoff you normally would get, you need to also have a reward. It doesn't mean necessarily to go shop, but it could mean to go out for a walk, could be a reward. Writing a list of great things about yourself could be your reward. Watching a series on Netflix could be a reward. It doesn't matter what the reward is. It matters the fact that you do it and you honor yourself and who you are becoming more of. And you're increasing that self-concept of who you are. So what is that reward? What does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that taste like? Let's use all of those receptors. Tell someone close I trust who will give me affirmation. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. So taking myself on a walk, doing a little victory dance, singing out loud. Yes, love that little victory dance. I can actually see it in my head now, a little dance. I'm not going to dance, but yes. Add it to my achievement log. Yes, yes, and yes. Have an achievement log, which is a great reminder, actually. If you haven't got an achievement log, if you don't check in with yourself, then this is a great reminder to go and create that. Make it on OneNote or Google Drive, whatever it is, but check in with your achievement log and make sure you're saluting yourself and giving yourself a round of applause for all the work you're doing. Chilling in my room, which is a safe, fun space. Do what I want, so I can do what I want. Finally finish things that have been hard work to complete. Feel like I got there. Fantastic, great. Take a good rest. Yes, and yes, and yes. Okay, so we know we've got the reward. We've got some of the questions we're going to ask ourselves to check in, and we're going to possibly add that achievement log as well. So what else? Going to the Science Museum. Little son spending a whole day in his wonderful company. Yes, appreciating others that we appreciate and being with them in their company is great, right? Feels so great. I'm going to create a template for you all. So the next steps with exceptional individuals is that we do many things. We do mentoring. We do job coaching. Obviously, we've got our social media channels as well. So what's your next step? So all the things that you kind of described, we have coaches, they're available for you, mentors available for you to help you move forward. We have mentors that will help you to navigate some of the challenges. Fantastic. Subscribe, follow us on social media. Fantastic. Mentoring, yes, and other, whatever that is, reach out to us, let us know. We're always here to help. Job coaching's a good one too. Okay. So you can go to our website as well. In the meantime, while you're waiting, we've got so much resources there that are going to help you to get more insights and help you move forward as well, whatever that might look like. You've learned to identify different ways your emotions present. You discovered some tools to help you manage your emotions. You've learned how we can support you. What is your biggest takeaway from dyslexia and emotional dysregulation? It helps me to curve out the next workshop I do, which won't be now until like quite a few months, but it's always helpful to get that feedback from you to find out what was the biggest takeaway. Great. Finding positive ways to regulate my emotions better. Great. Help me to learn people with dyslexia can manage their emotions. Fantastic. Great. That I'm not alone. You are not. Fantastic. Love to hear that. Having a plan enables me to feel empowered to get my needs met. Yes, and yes. I feel like my life and everything suddenly makes sense. I love these webinars so much. I want to work for exceptional individuals. Well, that's a great testimony to exceptional individuals' work. So thank you for that. Good to relate to others, different coping strategies to look into. Yes. Ways to boost dopamine and oxytocin. Yes. Really not alone. My situation is not me being a bit, yeah, exactly. You are not alone, and there are so many challenges that come up, but there's so many solutions too. Creative ideas for managing difficulties. Yes. What you guys provide an idea, step back from the emotion and do what I really want. Listen to myself more. Yes. Biggest takeaway is that emotions can be regulated. Look into workplace assessments as well. Yes, you can go ahead with a workplace assessment without the diagnosis. Exceptional individuals can help with that too if you need help. You guys do great work by raising awareness and educating me. We're going to keep in contact with you. I think it's 2 weeks webinar. You're going to be seeing my colleague Nat do his great things that he does. So make sure you sign up for the next sessions. Thank you all. Have a great time.